on back-to-back World Cups from a very similar group. We just saw Lionel Scaloni, and Lionel Scaloni, he decided to make this group about experience. It didn't quite renew the group all that much, and it feels like it's ride or die with the guys that I know have gone through this and are going to be able to handle the moment. Yeah. Is that going to be enough? That's another big question.
Yeah, very much themes of familiarity and continuity. Lionel Scaloni, over 2/3 of the squad that went to Qatar, still very much involved as Argentina look to create some havoc. Man down on the ground is Giuliano Simeone, and almost fell back to him, and then the shot all along the ground. An instinctive left-footed effort from Valentin Barco, and Argentina delight the crowd here at Auburn by taking an early lead.
And I spoke earlier about Valentin Barco, that he had a good match against Honduras, and is one of those players that is making a case for Lionel Scaloni. This is just poor defending from Iceland. Opportunity to clear it, clear it, clear it. Somebody clear it, get rid of it, clear it. No, all right, fine. Then give an opportunity to Valentin Barco from top of the 18-yard box and give him credit. Stays with it, snapshot, through a whole lot of bodies. The goalkeeper from Iceland sees it late. By the time he reacts, it's too late. Full stretch, can't quite get there. 1-0. Good finish from Valentin Barco. And again, poor defending from Iceland. Unable to clear their lines. 1-0. Argentina.
Well, as you pointed out, Addy, several chances to deal with it for that Icelandic defence. Take nothing away from Barco. That was anything but easy, wasn't it, with the left foot? Didn't have much target to aim at, but found the bottom corner unerringly. Just his second international goal, and what is only his 4th appearance for his country. And at the age of 21, he is kind of the exception to the rule. We're talking about the rejuvenation of this Argentina squad, and Lionel Scaloni hasn't done that much of it, but Barco has made his presence felt. Oscarsson trying to do the same at the other end for Iceland, who had that chance through Ellertson before Barco pounced. Here's Gudmundsson.
It's interesting to ask the question from Argentina, from Lionel Scaloni, as he looks at this group of players that are currently on the field. Which one of these players could be useful to him during the World Cup? And think back to 4 years ago and how players like Alexis McAllister were not considered to be starters. Enzo Fernandez not considered to be a starter. And then as they lost the game against Saudi Arabia and they had to make some changes, these guys came on and made a difference. Which one of the players that we're now seeing is potentially one of those guys that can make a difference coming off the bench, or if indeed Scaloni needs to make changes from game to game? One of those players, as of right now, so far, is being Valentin Barco.
Yeah, well, certainly there were players that started the last World Cup on the bench and ended up in the starting side, playing a huge part in proceedings. Thinking of Enzo Fernandez, of course, he's on the bench tonight. Given away, and a chance for Lopez to lead the charge. Cutting inside, awkward for the keeper, got enough on it to steer it to safety for now. And then a miss-hit shot on the follow-up from Simeone. And Iceland survive barely.
Maybe I'm going to give an excuse to Nico Paz. It's poor distribution play from Iceland and a turnover. That indeed the field conditions are not helping him out. But it felt like it was one of those moments in which you need to read the situation a whole lot better. Yes, there's an overlap in Ronald Giuliano Simeone, but the defenders had gone with Simeone, so it felt like it was an opportunity for Nico Paz to cut to his left foot and take the shot himself. Once the overlap happened, felt like Iceland were in a position where at the very least they were going to be able to defend. They did enough just defensively, and eventually Argentina found themselves in an offside position.
These two teams have only met once before, but it was at a World Cup. It was almost exactly 8 years ago to the day in Moscow. It was the opening game for both teams, and it ended as a 1-1 draw. That was when Iceland were perhaps at the peak of their powers. This is Jose Lopez. He's only made one start in his career for Argentina prior to tonight. He sets that up with an invitation.
It's really good work from Jose Manuel El Flaco Lopez. Good turn in open space, able to find the supporting run on the right-hand side. Lisandro Martinez, not surprisingly, taking somebody down. That's something he does quite well and quite naturally. But the hold-up play from Jose Manuel Lopez so far has been really good, and the combination play trying to find Nico Paz also was very good, but good defending in the end from Iceland.
Jose Lopez will be a newer name to some followers of the Argentina national team. As I mentioned, just one start prior to tonight and another 3 substitute appearances. He plays his club football in Brazil with Palmeiras, and he has been a big-time goal scorer in the Brazilian Serie A, hasn't he? He's won the top goal scorer award twice in the last 4 seasons. At the age of 25, Jose Lopez perhaps just a little bit older than some of those new arrivals in the Argentina squad.
The other thing to take into consideration when you watch this starting 11 for Lionel Scaloni and Argentina, who scored the clinching penalty kick for Argentina in the World Cup final? It wasn't Messi. It's not Julian Alvarez. Gonzalo Montiel.
Yeah.
The responsibility fell on Gonzalo Montiel, and so that's why it's important to get some repetition for some of these players, because they may be the guys that are called upon in a game-clinching moment to make that sort of difference.
Yeah, you know in the knockout rounds there are going to be moments just like that. I mean, Argentina had them in the last World Cup, didn't they? Taken the distance by the Netherlands. Again, they have Algeria to open up their World Cup Group J, defense of their title, and then that's in Kansas City, and then they'll camp out in Dallas for the next 2 games against Austria and Jordan.
People at home, you got a chance to see Dick Vitale's top freshman. Here are my year basketball. That's what I call him. Caleb Wilson, an absolute star.
In a game-clinching moment to make that sort of difference.
Yeah, you know in the knockout rounds there are going to be moments just like that. I mean, Argentina had them in the last World Cup, didn't they? Taken the distance by the Netherlands. Again, they have Algeria to open up their World Cup Group J, defense of their title, and then that's in Kansas City, and then they'll camp out in Dallas for the next 2 games against Austria and Jordan. Getting to see plenty of the American heartland after being in College Station just the other night. There's Victor Paulsen. He's a player for Iceland with some MLS experience in his past with the New York Red Bulls and with DC United. Iceland doing a fair amount of travel themselves in recent days. Their last friendly was in Japan. giving the hosts their World Cup send-off. They lost that game by 1-0. It was back on the 31st of May in front of 62,000. Now here they are in front of 87,000.
And if you look back to the World Cup qualifying campaign for Iceland, in a group with France, Ukraine, and Azerbaijan, it really was going to come down, not to the matches against France, because you don't expect to win those. It was going to come down to the matches against Ukraine. And when you lose twice to Ukraine, it really doesn't matter what else you do in the group, because they went on to beat Azerbaijan twice, but the damage was already done. And in losing twice to Ukraine, as expected, they finished third in the group and gone, not in the World Cup.
Yeah. Those 2 wins against Azerbaijan, actually their only 2 wins in the last calendar year. Back to Rulli, the Marseille keeper, who's winning just his 8th Argentina cap tonight. As they're still awaiting number 1 keeper Emi Martinez's return to fitness.
Uh-oh. All right.
Yep.
Yeah, there he is. Okay. Everybody go crazy. They're all clapping for Rodrigo de Paul, I'm sure.
The bodyguard, he's always by his side. The question is, for how long do they get to see the main man tonight? Stuart Robson in our pre-game studio predicting about 30 minutes. That's about right, Ali, with that muscle strain in the left hamstring to try and protect.
Well, this is what I would do if I were Lionel Scaloni. I would have to be 100% sure that Lionel Messi is fit and ready to go, without any sort of question or doubt whatsoever. Because the last thing I would want is to put him out there just because I want him to get some minutes and he wasn't quite ready. And let me just say, if you re-aggravate a muscle strain at this point, more than likely it means that, yeah, the World Cup is not for him.
Yeah.
So if he's ready to go and fit and you want to get him some minutes, so be it. But if there's any question, let him sit comfortably in that same bench that we just saw.
Yeah. He made an abrupt exit, didn't he, in Inter Miami's last MLS game before the international break. That was back on May the 24th, 2.5 weeks. Medina, Otamendi, Barco, the goal scorer, leaving it for Ezequiel Palacios. Game, I mentioned the only prior meeting between Argentina and Iceland in Moscow, a 1-1 draw. Sergio Aguero was Argentina's scorer for Finn Bogason equalising, and Lionel Messi actually missed a penalty in that game, you might remember. "20 minutes gone here in Auburn. Glad you could be with us, Adrian Healy and Alejandro Moreno, watching Argentina being put through their paces for the last time before they start their defence of the World Cup title. They won so thrillingly in Qatar, and this is promising. It broke down right at the end. Barco couldn't pick up the final pass.
But in that turn in tight space, you saw what is so exciting about Nico Paz. Elegant with his touches on the ball, and while he has a big body and is a big frame, still moves very well with the ball in his feet. In tight spaces is looking to combine. And as I mentioned earlier, had a great season at Como, and they're waiting for him to have that same sort of impact with this national team.
Yeah. 8 appearances so far for the 21-year-old Paz, just the 1 goal up to this point. But a chance for Argentina to sink their teeth into a free kick here, won by Jose Lopez.
biggest issue that Nico Paz has is, again, good combination. I've been talking about El Flaco Lopez and how well he's done with the hold-up play. The biggest issue that Nico Paz has is, well, that position is occupied by none other than Lionel Messi. So until Lionel Messi walks out the door, Nico Paz is going to be comfortably seated on the bench.
Yeah. And he did have such a fabulous season with Como, didn't he? Cesc Fabregas, his club manager, just raving about it. The 21-year-old. Real Madrid, by the way, still own half his rights, and there's certainly a scenario where he could end up back at the Bernabeu. He did come through their youth academy.
Especially when then Real Madrid goes and spends a ton of money to go get Franco Mastantuono, and that doesn't really pan out. You had a young Argentinian already in your books. You decided to allow him to go to Como, while this guy could have been playing for you all along.
There's the Argentina free kick, and almost split the uprights here at Jordan Hare Stadium. Right, you talk him up, Ali, and then that happens.
I'm sorry, are you blaming that on me?
There's Elias Olafsson, the Icelandic keeper. Bit of a star in the Danish league, Olafsson. Now then, this cooling break is brought to you by Gatorade. As we reach the halfway point of the first half, and a scene that's going to become very familiar, Ali, over the next month or so.
No, I have no issues with people hydrating and drinking Gatorade. I have an issue with the cooling break, though. Broken play, missed clearance, another missed clearance, poor defending. They're just kind of looking at the ball, not really reacting in time, and Valentin Barco decides just to put his laces behind the ball. Olafsson sees us late, tries to react, but can't quite get there. 1-0.
Super finish for a man for whom goal scoring has not always come easy. He only scored twice for Strasbourg, his French First Division club, last season. In some ways, he's a bit of an Argentine Clint Dempsey. Ali used to make a 450-kilometer round trip to training at Boca Juniors because there was no room for him in the academy accommodation. So him and his dad used to make that round trip drive 4 times a week. Barco. And perseverance paid off for him. He's found his place, hasn't he? He had an awkward move to England with Brighton, didn't quite work out for him there, but has really flourished at Strasbourg, and it's going to be fascinating to see if he can really become a factor for Lionel Scaloni.
And what I like about him, and it's something that I noticed in the game against Honduras, and you're seeing the same thing here tonight against Iceland, is that sometimes if you are intimidated by the opportunity to play with Argentina in a World Cup in this sort of stage, you don't exactly come to the ball all that often. You may just find yourself hiding away from tight areas. In the case of Valentin Barco, he's just looking to get on the ball all the time. In tight areas with space, he's coming to get the ball from center back, but he's also going to get the ball from the attacking players. He's willing to run in behind. My question with Valentin Barco is size going to be an issue? He's not quite the physical presence that you would want in the midfield, but certainly a guy that with the ball in his feet can distribute play and can keep the rhythm going for Argentina.
And certainly Barco has caught the eye, as has both Jose Lopez and Nico Paz through this opening 25 minutes. Argentina, for those of you keeping count, have an excellent record in the last friendlies they played before a World Cup. They won their last 7 of them. And in recent years, Ali, they've made a habit of playing teams fairly low down the world pecking order, haven't they? And I was astonished to read this is their first European opponent they've had since the World Cup final against France at the end of 2022.
sure Argentina would argue that when you play 3.5 years worth of qualifiers in CONMEBOL, that is as competitive as it gets. But point taken. And oh, by the way, I said that Valentin Barco perhaps may struggle with his size and the physicality of the game. He decides, you know what, I'll just go in a two-footed challenge and prove you wrong.
It's almost like he was listening, Alec. Well, the upshot is the free kick here, which Gudmundsson is standing over. Johannesson as well. And it's Gudmundsson who takes it and didn't clear the first defender. I'm not sure Barco, who's everywhere at the moment, isn't he? I'm sure he was the full 10 yards. And certainly feeling the effects.
Pretty sure he takes this on the face, which is less than ideal.
Right.
And he's probably going to be brought off to be evaluated, I'm guessing, or maybe not.
Appeared to be reluctantly walking towards the sideline. Maybe he was just going to take his place in the one-man wall again. Which it's a throw this time. Dealt with by the combined ranks of the Argentina defence, but only as far as Ellertson. Missed that early chance for Iceland. Mikael Ellertson, who has his club football in Italy with Genoa. Clash of heads as Facundo Medina down. Medina in at left back tonight.
And he gets him with a chicken wing. Arm stretch away from the body. Hits the top of the head. It is a foul. And Victor Paulsen also receives a yellow card. I think that's a bit much, but there you go.
I have to agree. Nothing particularly malicious about the challenge, even though it caught Medina. Medina probably behind Nicolas Tagliafico in the pecking order for that left back spot, Ali, and Tagliafico is another 33-year-old.
The reports coming out of Argentina is that he came out of the game against Honduras with some muscle fatigue, so he was not going to feature today.
Medina has not been to a World Cup yet at the age of 27. Only 8 prior appearances for the Albi Celeste. Gretarsson just guiding it back to Olafsson. And then Gretarsson a little careless in possession. The upshot is Barco on the ground, and another free kick coming Argentina's way. Not to mention another booking.
It was a combo package of mistake from Gretarsson. He's trying to dribble out of pressure, unable to do that, and then he follows that up with a foul and a yellow card, and now an opportunity for Argentina.
Let's go through some of their set-piece routines, perhaps. It's Giovanni Lo Celso. How much he is looking forward to this World Cup, having missed out on the last one just cruelly weeks before it. Picked up a muscle injury just before Qatar. Had to watch from the sidelines. Lo Celso's delivery, a tasty one, dealt with. And as far as Lopez.
I do wonder, Adrian, about the long list of players from Argentina that have been rested over the course of the last couple of games. It's not just Messi, Julian Alvarez, and Diego Martinez, and Cristian Romero, and Leandro Paredes, and the list goes on, and I kind of go, all right, there is resting, and then there is, well, are we still concerned about the level of fitness of this player? And are they magically going to acquire that level of fitness ahead of the first game against Algeria? So how much of this is rest? How much of it is actual concern to make sure that these players get to the World Cup in the best level possible? But how do you do that if you're not able to get out on the field?
Right. We will not know the answer to that question fully until during the 16th, a week from tonight. Barco to Medina. This is going to be Argentina's 19th World Cup overall, the third most of any nation. Not to mention their 14th in a row. We'll go back to 1978 when they hosted it. They've been to 5 finals since then. That's tied for the most with Germany in that time span.
This team and this version of Argentina, not necessarily those players that are on the field tonight, but just in general, it has such a similar feel to the transition from 1986 World Cup, winning that with Maradona, to the team that then lost in the finals to, at the time, West Germany in the 1990 World Cup. Yeah. To our colleague, by the way, Jürgen Klinsmann, who lifted the trophy that night. Regardless, I digress. Point being is that that team in 1990 was an aging Argentina team that still had a lot of the same talented players from the 1986 World Cup, but it was on the back end also what Maradona, what he was in 1986 and wasn't able to replicate in 1990.
Right.
They're
yeah, it's a really good comparison, Ali. Remember that team well.
There's a similar feel to what this team is going to be in this World Cup as compared to what that team was in the 1990 World Cup.
Yeah. And they had to fight and claw and make things ugly to get their way through the knockout rounds of that tournament. Including beating Brazil. Remember it well. And of course, upended the host nation Italy along the way.
And it's beating Brazil when Brazil was hitting the post and the crossbar and all sorts of different things, but then a moment of magic from Maradona and finding Claudio Paul Canigia and him getting around Tafarel and scoring the game-winning 1-0, and you kind of go, I can see that happening for this team in this World Cup. That sort of situation in which you have that moment of magic for Lionel Messi, but how much magic will we see? Not quite sure.
Yeah, header over the top there from Gretarsson after the delivery from Isaac Johannesson. No trouble for Geronimo Rulli. He's been flourishing with Marseille late on in his career at the age of 34. A bit of a careless giveaway. IsLand have numbers forward, enjoying a spell of possession here. Spell almost ended there, but Lo Celso's closing down.
And as a cautionary tale, if we're going to go with the comparison to the 1990 World Cup and the feel of this team, they lost their first game against Cameroon.
Yeah.
1-0.
Most infamous upsets of all time. Of course, Argentina also lost their first game last time out in Qatar against Saudi Arabia. And it's Algeria who will try and repeat those astonishing feats. The interesting thing about the way their group is set up, Ali, is if they either win or finish runners-up in their Group J. They will collide head-on with either Spain or Uruguay in all likelihood. Those two firm favourites to come out of their group. So that would